Welcome to today's webinar on resource optimization. Thank you for joining us today with the holidays just around the corner. We're super excited to get started and we have a lot of content and demos to get through. My name is Yvonne Lin, Industry Solutions Coordinator. Joined here with me today is Pat Hull, Industry Solutions Specialist, and Patrick Holes, Solution Engineer Team Lead. All of us are a part of the Esri Utilities team. As you can see, we've done a number of webinars this year. There's a lot of opportunity and good content out there. The links will be on our YouTube playlist under Telecommunications. And be sure to be on the lookout for 2020 as we have a number of exciting events and upcoming content. So before we get started, let's do some housekeeping. I encourage you to post any questions as they occur to you in the question dialog box below. Questions requiring longer answers or technical questions will be handled after the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Telecom playlist on YouTube. You'll receive a follow-up email that includes all the links to these locations. So without further ado, let's welcome Pat Hull to talk about the agenda.
Thanks, Yvonne, and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today to talk about resource optimization. Thank you for being our customers. Thank you for being our business partners and for your interest in this topic. As Yvonne said, we're very pleased to be able to share this content with you as we wrap up 2019 and demonstrate some ways that ArcGIS can support optimizing all kinds of resources in telecommunications. We have a great lineup, and we're going to start by looking at the agenda. You might be thinking, resource optimization, this is a big topic. Where are you going with this? Well, here's where we're going. We're quickly going to set up a framework of GIS in the industry, and we're going to do that by talking about the complete GIS for telecommunications. It's really much more than just mapping hardware. It's integrating all kinds of data and analyzing it and using it to work better across the enterprise. Then there's the network piece. We're going to talk about fixed wireless and fiber planning, managing multiple networks in a single GIS with one network model, and support them all in one place rather than planning and handling different architectures separately. We will move on to smarter field operations, where we use the same GIS to balance technician territory and workload. And finally, the demonstrations will reveal ways to fine-tune and manage work more effectively, collect data digitally, and ultimately reduce trips to the field. As Yvonne said, we will leave time for questions at the end, so please type them in as you think of them. We can see them. It gives us a chance to organize and prioritize those, and then we will come back to them at the end. So let's talk for just a minute about ArcGIS. It is the complete GIS for telecommunications companies. And this is going to be a theme that comes out throughout the webinar, so watch for this. It delivers three powerful information capabilities. The first is to author information about your organization. The second one is to share access to that information with everybody that needs it. Third, to analyze that information and unlock the value of the data that you have authored, and then ultimately to take action to guide your business decisions with the best available information. We're going to see some really interesting ways to use these capabilities today for resource optimization. Now, one thing that makes Esri really stand out is its wide-ranging capabilities and the numerous ways that it's applied in telecommunications companies. As I said, it's a complete GIS, and you might be thinking, what do you mean by that? That means that it contains all of the elements that you need to solve business challenges, not just make maps faster. These are not separate things. These are all capabilities that work seamlessly together. And as you're undoubtedly aware, most companies start by using GIS to map their facilities, and we call that a system of record. That's the place where information is maintained. But ArcGIS goes further. Our development expanded into other areas that directly support things like we're going to discuss today in resource optimization. ArcGIS includes an incredible system of insight that you see there at the bottom. Insight capabilities that help to better understand that data from the system of record and understand what it means using state-of-the-art tools like data science and other forms of both traditional and spatial analysis. That helps you find patterns and trends that really are impossible to spot otherwise and can help you optimize almost anything. Then third, field techs and even customers are touched directly by what we call the system of engagement. That gets the information and the insights to everyone that needs it in convenient ways. It's a variety of apps that are all focused very specifically on the user, and they align to how people work today. Now, this is an interesting fact. Recent studies show that people check their phones between 80 and 300 times per day. I think my kids might be a little bit higher than 300, but they're definitely in that range. So this includes mobile apps, of course, and web apps, and even apps that perform analysis, so that anyone in the organization can engage with the information to do their job more effectively based on their particular role. And that's very powerful, much more than making maps. We want to support you to accomplish your core business missions by digitally transforming your workflows, by sharing access to the right information so that staff have it when and where they need it to make the best decisions. So as we look across the screen here, we see some of the core business missions. Companies are striving to grow revenue, of course, that's always important, but also to meet customer changing needs. Digital consumers have different desires, and we want to meet those needs. And that drives transforming networks to keep up with those demands, and also technology, and provide new digital services. And the theme of our discussion today, optimizing resources. The complete GIS supports all of the business missions, including optimizing those resources. And it creates a new type of infrastructure within organizations. Think of it this way. It's an infrastructure to maintain key information, evaluate it, and then distribute the business meaning to everyone that needs it. We have hundreds of people online today, and we would like to tailor the webinar as much as possible to the audience. So take a moment and help us get to know you. Please answer this question. Where are you using GIS and maps today? And you can choose all that apply. Would it be resource optimization, revenue growth, customer experience, network transformation, or digital services, or any combination of those? We'll give you a minute here to gather the results, and we'll close the poll in just a moment and look at those. Very interesting, a lot of activity in network transformation. I'm very glad to see that, and a fair bit of activity in resource optimization already. I think that's due to the fact that it really is a very natural fit with this kind of information, and we intend to show you a few ways that maybe you haven't thought of already, and some new capabilities that can help you expand in this particular area. We've planned a few examples that build on each other to show how organizations are using the complete GIS infrastructure to optimize different kinds of resources. That would include network planned, employee resources, and even business processes. Esri is helping Fortune 500 companies in virtually every industry, including telecommunications, to modernize their business. So let's break resource optimization down a little bit. We want to help you support industry best practices and standards, and we're going to break resource optimization up into these three parts that will guide us through the webinar today. First, modeling the network and the connectivity of all current architectures is critical, and using a comprehensive model that reflects the reality in the field in 3D when needed is an excellent step forward in this area. In this section, we're going to focus on optimizing assets. Secondly, we're going to look at how to analyze the network data and visualize things like routing and scheduling to optimize how people work. So the second area will be around people. And then finally, being mobile first and interoperable with other systems improves data collection and scheduling and simplifies integration with other systems. These are all ways to optimize processes. So today we're going to look at examples in these categories of assets, people, and processes. The first area we're going to consider is network modeling and connectivity of assets. And this demonstration is around a very common workflow of fixed wireless and fiber planning. I'm really eager for everyone to see this. Patrick, you've got the element of surprise on your side, so let's dig in.
Thanks, Pat. So before we get into the demonstration, I'd like to share a little bit on what we've seen in the industry. So today, consumers are demanding more broadband products, and communication service providers have a variety of ways that they can deliver those broadband services. So CSPs need to be more strategic and provide to their planners and engineers the tools to be able to plan for the right technology in the right location at the right time. With the proper GIS tools, communication service providers can optimize their network rollouts and assets. ArcGIS with the utility network provides a complete GIS for planning and managing all types of communication networks, from the inside plant to the outside distribution network, supporting GPON and fiber to everything and anything architectures, while also supporting copper, coax, and hybrid networks. And of course, the ever-evolving wireless networks, whether it's mobile or fixed. So now, let's jump into ArcGIS and see how a complete network and connectivity model for communications can optimize the network rollout process. So with a complete GIS, we can plan communication networks and optimize network build-out, whether it's fixed line or wireless. Here in our map, we can see all of our fiber assets, as well as our wireless towers being managed by the utility network. We've got a new business that is requesting broadband services, but it looks like they're quite a bit off net of our existing fiber network. So what we want to do is plan for a new fiber extension to this business and start to estimate the possible cost. Using the network planning optimization tools within ArcGIS, let's find the least cost fiber route to deliver that broadband service to this business customer. So first, I want to select our business location. Then I want to select any of the assets and features within our telecom utility network that we potentially want to route back to. In this case, our manholes. Now, as a network planner, I may also want to see other business opportunities along this route that we could also offer this broadband service to. So let's return all businesses within 200 feet of this proposed route. Now, as this tool runs, what it'll do, it'll go into the utility network and locate all of the manholes. Then it'll find the manhole that is the closest to our business that has available network capacity that we can tap into. Then the route will be optimized based off of that least cost path. And finally, all of the business opportunities that fall within 200 feet of that fiber route will be returned. So here we can see that proposed fiber route. And selecting it will then show us the estimated cost to build it, as well as the total length of that fiber route, which we can see in the pop-up on the right-hand side. We also see all of those other business opportunities along the route that we potentially could sell our business services to. Now, using the same GIS application, I can also qualify this business for fixed wireless to see if it is a cheaper alternative than building out fiber to them. Here, I've got a 3D wireless planning map that I can drag alongside our 2D fiber planning map. Now, looking at the location of our new business prospect, it looks like that they fall in the green coverage area of our existing 5G small cells downtown. But let's actually go ahead and take a look at our fixed wireless assessment. In 3D, we can now see the business off in the distance. We also see our existing 5G rooftop antenna. Using the visibility and line of sight tools within ArcGIS, we can start to quickly qualify this business for fixed wireless service. Running these 3D tools, we can now see that our targeted building, our new business op, can receive this fixed wireless service. Everything in green has clear line of sight, while everything in red has an obstructed view. We could even add to these tools clutter data, look at other obstructions obtained from LiDAR data, and even start to model Fresnel zone as well as other spectrum frequencies. Now, before I fully qualify this building for receiving fixed wireless service, what I want to do is run a connected trace to figure out which of our central offices is the closest. This way, I can start to calculate the possible latency for providing this fixed wireless service. So, to start my connected trace, what I'm going to do is add a 5G receiver to the side of our business prospects building. Adding this rooftop structure also adds the necessary antenna equipment and network topology directly into our versioned database. You'll see once I add the point on the left-hand side that it appears in our 3D view as well. So the next thing that we want to do is we'll want to set up an association or connection between our original receiver on top of the roof and our original transmitter on top of the roof and our new antenna receiver on the business building. So to do that, I'll leverage the utility network and create a connectivity association. First, I'll select the antenna on our rooftop, existing 5G tower, and then I'll select our new receiver. And we'll create this association. Now I want to save my edits and then validate our network topology and connectivity. So now that we've created that connectivity, we can then start to view the association between that new receiver location and the original 5G transmitter. Okay, so now that we have a connected network, let's run that connected trace. First, starting at the business location, running through our wireless network to our 5G antenna, and then through the fiber network to locate that nearest central office. To do this, I've set up a nearest central office trace. And we'll go ahead and run this. So we see that the trace has been completed. And if we go take a look at what has been selected in our map from the trace, we have one structure boundary that has been selected. Now, if we go zoom to the selection, it'll take us right to that nearest central office. And since we are using the utility network to manage all of our network information, we can easily start to view the inside plant world. So let's go back to our utility network and display our inside plant. This lets us see all of the floors, rooms, racks, patches, and other equipment within our central office. So now that we know our nearest central office, we know the fiber route that our antenna will take to get there, I can start to calculate the estimated latency and figure out if providing fixed wireless to our new business prospect is a cheaper and also viable option for delivering our broadband services. So leveraging ArcGIS and a complete network and connectivity model for communications, we were able to optimize our network assets and figure out if fiber or fixed wireless would be the technology used to deliver our broadband services. The 2D and 3D mapping capabilities allowed us to plan both fixed line and wireless in the same app. And one system of record allowed us to trace network topology through multiple types of networks.
Patrick, I really appreciate analyzing multiple architectures in one scheme like that. What a great example of a state-of-the-art system of record, and what a time saver. Integrating those things and then evaluating them in 3D, particularly with the requirements of 5G. That's the way things are going to have to be done in the future. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely.
And then to look at all of those businesses along the proposed route, just super powerful. It's a pretty simple use of spatial technology, but super powerful in terms of marketing and business value, just to identify where the opportunities would lie. Good job, thank you. Well, having a complete model of reality is fantastic, and we can use that for even more. And we're going to look at that as we now move into people. We can use traditional and spatial analysis to improve operations in the field. Now, when you think about it, there is a lot of diversity in field operations. There's diversity in geography and population density, our infrastructure, and certainly workload too. How could we use data to optimize the territories for our field technicians in a way that would optimize their work and also improve customer service at the same time? This next demonstration really plays off of the first one very nicely, and attendees watch for ways where you can balance business considerations like customer service with employee productivity. Patrick, you ready to show us how to do that?
Yep, let's do it. So for this second demonstration, I'm going to highlight the territory management tools within ArcGIS to help us optimize the field technician territories. So now that we've qualified an opportunity for fixed wireless, we need a technician to go out and deploy a receiver on their household. Let's figure out which of our technicians that we would assign to that install. So to create these territories, the first thing that I want to do is bring in our existing home garage locations for our 5 technicians, which we can see on the map. Then we'll bring in all of the customer homes that are assigned to each of these technicians. Next, I want to aggregate each of these home locations to these different hexagon bins so that I can then take each of these locations and assign them to each one of our technicians. Now, doing this aggregation also allows us to create additional variables that we may want to balance these technician territories off of. For example, the total number of homes that fall within one of these areas, or maybe the average install time for our fixed wireless service. Okay, now let's start creating these territories. First, we'll do a drive time. We'll create a 20-minute drive time around each of these home garages. Then, using the territory management tools, we'll then automatically assign each of these bins or areas to our technicians. Here we can see those results. What you'll also notice is that some of these areas have not been assigned to a technician. And that's because they fall outside of that 20-minute window, which may indicate that we need another technician to help support installs in this region. Now, if we take a look at a chart that shows us the total number of homes that have been assigned to each one of our technicians, we'll notice that field technician number 2 has quite a bit more homes assigned to them than the other technicians. So how about we rebalance the distribution of assignments to each of our technicians? So to do this, we'll use the balance variable tools. And here is where we can set up the different variables that we want to leverage to help balance our territories. So for example, if we had a more experienced technician that is used to doing more installs in a single day, we might want to create an experience score that we rate or weight higher so that they can have more homes assigned to them. For this example, we're just going to use the number of assigned homes as our variable, and we will give the overall weight to that 100%. So we'll set our balance variable. Then we will solve our territories. We'll select the number of territories that we want to solve for, which will be the 5 field technician locations. So what we will see here is that a few of these areas have been reassigned to different technicians. Now, looking at our chart, it doesn't really appear as though the number of homes assigned has been evenly distributed. So this shows me that that 20-minute drive time is still restricting or skewing our assignments. So let's now rebalance based off of a 30-minute drive time and see what results we're left with. We'll set our territory distance parameters at a 30-minute drive time. Then once more, we will solve for 5 territories. This time what we'll see is that the homes that have been assigned to each of our technicians is far more evenly distributed. And we see in the map that some of these areas that hadn't been assigned before because of that 20-minute drive time restriction have now been assigned to our field technicians. With ArcGIS, you can apply spatial analysis and mapping to your territory designs to optimize your field technician territories, and leveraging past install data to ensure that your territories are balanced to guarantee that install windows are met and that your customer satisfaction is high.
Patrick, really excellent. I love the way that you can include different factors there and balance them, alter the weighting until you find the solution that suits your business best, it would be far better to know that you have a 30-minute drive time and then start at that point rather than assuming that you could hit everybody in 20 minutes. You know, where I used to work, we did some home garaging for employee technicians. And I will tell you, initially we got a little pushback about storing company vehicles at employees' homes. But ultimately, it did just what you demonstrated there. It reduced drive time, it improved our customer service, and in the end, the employees really liked it too. They were happier, a real win-win. Okay, we've looked at assets and people, but what about processes? One process issue that we've heard from many customers are excessive trips to the field. For example, we all know that temporary drops are just a part of the business, and we have a metric around 14 days or so where we would like those to be buried, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Customer concerns might require an additional visit from a supervisor. And if that drop bury is to be done by a contractor, then there could be additional trips for estimators, schedulers, inspections, and all of that can get tough to manage. Without good tracking, sometimes another trip to the field is just what it takes to get it right. What if we digitize that process? I bet we could manage things more effectively. And Patrick, are you ready to show that to us?
You bet. So as a field technician, I have access to a variety of mobile apps to help me optimize my fieldwork, including mobile maps, work order management, location tracking, navigation, and data collection. So while provisioning a new customer, I'll use one of these apps to collect the location of a drop cable for not only tracking its location, but also its status to ensure that we get that drop buried by our contractor as soon as possible. So I'll first start by entering in a drop ID or the address of the customer. Then we'll collect the location of the pedestal along with taking a photo of it. Next, I'll start capturing the location of our drop cable. And as I start walking the line, a breadcrumb trail and the actual line of that drop cable is collected. Finally, when I reach the termination at the customer premise, I'll capture one additional point, take a photo, and then submit this to the back office. So this process for collecting this information digitally and geographically is made easy for field technicians. So now, in the back office, we are able to track the location of those drop cables, as well as the status of all of them through a map-based dashboard. So in our map view, we can easily see the location of the pedestals, as well as those location of the termination points and all of the drop cables. On the left-hand side, we are also tracking the status of each of these cables. And since we know when the technician went out to lay down this drop, we know how long that the status has been at a certain status. For example, we can start tracking how long a cable has been placed or dropped, but not yet buried by a contractor. And if a cable hasn't been buried for over that 2-week window, we can start to get alerts and notifications so we can let a contractor know to go out and bury it. Also within this application, we can start to edit this information, whether it's updating that data that's been collected from the field, including the status, or adding a note that we can then provide to our contractor or those out in the field. So the suite of ArcGIS mobile apps can help optimize the field data collection process By enabling that digital real-time data collection, you can improve collaboration between the teams in the back office and those in the field.
Patrick, thanks for pointing out the mobile data collection. Certainly much more powerful than the way business is often done, or certainly has been done in the past. As a former operations manager, here's what jumped out at me: that dashboard. Management wants to know the current status, and many people call that situational awareness. Just improving this kind of communication between the office and the field is so powerful. And as people look to improve business processes, address leadership within the organization, simple communication steps are some of the first things that we need to pay attention to. I have to comment on the alerts for stale orders. I mean, that's almost magical in terms of avoiding customer-related problems, to just be alerted to the fact that there's a situation that's getting stale and it needs attention. Very powerful. And don't miss this. We tend to think a lot about problems, but problems are a small part of what we do, and there's a lot of good work going on every day. A dashboard like that can help draw attention to the good work that is taking place every day in the field. We've seen 3 ways to optimize resources, and I'm wondering, how does the audience view this? If you would take a moment for another poll question, please answer this: which areas do you think have the most potential in the industry? And you can check all that apply. I'm guessing that one or more of these has jumped out at you as having potential for the business. Would it be around fixed wireless and fiber planning, improving field operations, or reducing trips to the field? Again, pick all that you would apply. We'll give you just a moment here, and then we'll take a look at the results. Yvonne, what do we have? Look at that, a pretty even split, but certainly a lot of interest there in the lead with fixed wireless and fiber planning, reinforcing that idea of the system of record. And certainly the infrastructure is getting more complicated, and the models are becoming more elaborate. And this just goes to supporting the kind of things that we've demonstrated here today. Patrick, before we wrap up, could you give us any closing thoughts? Maybe just talk for a moment about the technology that you've used here today in these demonstrations.
Sure thing. So if you're looking to get started with any of the solutions that we've shown here, what I'll do now is just walk through kind of an architecture of how to get started. So Pat mentioned a lot around the geospatial infrastructure of a complete GIS platform and the different systems of record, systems of engagement, and systems of insight. So that web services technology would sit kind of at this bottom tier, exposing a lot of those web services, that data, those analytical services, base maps, and additional content into a mapping portal, which would allow for users to get access to layers, maps, and apps that are consuming those services, also while managing their identity and providing security for that access. Then leveraging that mapping portal are a variety of applications that provide specific GIS functionality and can be strung together to solve some of the workflows we saw here today. So for example, during the fixed wireless and fiber planning demonstration, we saw ArcGIS Pro and the utility network for managing the telecom assets and performing that connected trace. We also saw a business analyst and network analyst to help optimize the fiber route planning, as well as locate other business opportunities that we could market and sell to. For the smarter field operations workflow, we used ArcGIS Pro and Business Analyst again to help optimize those field technician territories. And then finally, for reducing trips to the field, we saw a couple of the ArcGIS mobile apps that are available. first starting with quick capture to collect those drop berry locations, then consuming that in operations dashboard to be able to visualize that data, and finally, survey 123 to be able to update the status of that and send notes back to our contractors and those in the field. So with that, I will turn it over to Yvonne to open it up for questions and start fielding some of those that everyone on the webinar may have. Yvonne? Just one moment. Yvonne is getting her headset out here.
Hello? All right, now we are all good. So we have around 20 minutes left now, so we'll be addressing the questions that you have submitted during the webinar. If you haven't already, please send in any remaining questions that you have in the dialog box below. We're going to try to get through all the questions during this time. I already see a lot of great questions coming in. The first question is about drive time analysis. Are speed limits and time of day factored into drive time analysis? Patrick, if you want to take that one.
Sure, I can take that. So during that second demonstration, the speed limits, real-time traffic, and time of day can be factored into the analysis. So depending on when technicians start their day or when you want to base the drive time off of, you can definitely set that time of day, which will incorporate any of the historical traffic information as well.
Great, thank you. We have another question here about 3D. What is required to render buildings in 3D for a country that is outside of the US?
Yep, this is Patrick again. I'll take that one. So within ArcGIS Pro, which was the desktop application that we showed, it makes it very easily to start pulling in 3D data and start to visualize it and analyze it. So maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I would say that I would get a request once a week for polls. Do we have a massive database of polls? Within the last year, that's somewhat switched to also include things like buildings, building footprints, and 3D data. So to pull the most basic level of 3D data into ArcGIS from a building perspective, if you've got building footprints that have height information or the number of floors, you can then start to visualize those buildings based off of that information. Now, there are some Esri partners and sources out there to be able to purchase that 3D data directly. So depending on your country, you may look towards a local Esri distributor for that information, or there may be the local government that has collected a lot of LiDAR data that you can also leverage to start building those 3D features, including buildings, trees, and other 3D objects.
Thank you, Patrick, for answering that. Before we continue on with the questions, I just want to stress to stay engaged with us. Please stay engaged with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and GeoNet. Our Twitter handle is at Esri Telecom, and our LinkedIn Telecom group, if you just search in LinkedIn or Esri Telecom user group, it should populate. We post a number of good content, articles, and reminders for telecom events. So please show some love and give us a follow on our social channels. And these are just a lineup of a couple of upcoming events. that we'll be having this year. For our international audience, we will be going to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in February. If you are a developer, the Dev Summit might be of interest to you. For our domestic audience, we'll be making a presence at the Big 5G event in Texas. And of course, we have our user conference in July. But if you can't make any of these events, there are still a number of great Esri events and industry trade shows coming up this year. Now let's get back to the questions. I see a question on latency. How would you calculate latency?
I'll take that one, Yvonne. Patrick did make reference to calculating latency. So latency is dependent on several factors, one of which is the distance that the signal is traveling. The second would be the propagation speed of that signal through the relevant media. And then third, whatever equipment you have to pass through along the way, which could potentially introduce additional signal delay. So in terms of GIS use, when we saw in Patrick's demonstration, the ability to obtain the length is very useful in this type of a calculation, which is a very straightforward, simple math calculation. But also using the utility network, you could accumulate the equipment that signal must pass through along the way. And then calculating the ultimate latency would be a fairly straightforward calculation.
Thank you, Pat. I see there's another question about service locations. You showed the technician's home as known locations. Could you reverse the analysis to find optimal service locations?
Yeah, this is Patrick. The short answer to that is yes. So through the business analyst tool, to help balance and create those territories, we already started with the known starting point or centroid location, which was the garage locations. But you could reverse that analysis as well if you balanced your territories and then you wanted to then, let's say, put in a supply depot somewhere in the middle of that so they could hit all of the equipment that you have out there the most efficiently and effectively. You could do that reverse analysis through the tools as well.
Thank you for that explanation. We have a couple more questions here, but before you guys hop off, we would really appreciate it if you help us fill out this short poll that we have. We just want to know if you would like to be contacted to continue the conversation. For this last poll, we will not be sharing the results, but please let us know by taking the time out to fill out this short poll. And we will be continuing the questions as we go. I see a question here about utility network. Did you use the utility network for the 5G Connectivity Association?
Yes. So in that first demonstration, we created and added additional wireless structures and antennas to our data model and started setting up rules so that we could create those association between the antennas, as well as associations between the fiber network and the wireless network. So that connected trace that we had set up traces at the cable level to locate nearest objects, as well as any nearby features. In that case, we filtered by the nearest central office. So it looks like we've got a few additional questions here. So one of them that's come in is, what subscription version is this ArcGIS for, basic, standard, or advanced? That's a good question. So ArcGIS Pro, which was the desktop application we used, we were leveraging Network Analysts, which has advanced GP tools in it. So it does require an advanced license of ArcGIS. But depending on the analysis that you are looking to do, as well as the data management, asset management capabilities you're looking to have, please just reach out to us or your account manager for more questions on licensing.
Patrick, I just wanted to jump in on the prior question here. The question was around using business analyst and allocating the technicians' homes. I used to think that business analyst was really only for commercial and retail kind of stores and applications, but it's really got some very powerful capabilities for balancing things like the technician workload. In fact, I heard of a telecommunications company in the West here that was using business analyst to balance sales areas for their door-to-door sales staff. And they were doing so not only to improve their effectiveness, but to give all of those employees equal opportunity to make their sales quotas. I mean, it's a little outside the traditional here, but there's some great capabilities in some of these other products that are not normally associated with utility style work that have a lot of great capability.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good segue into another question, which is what GP tools were used for during the field operations workflow. And Pat, to your comment there, business analyst were the tools that were really being leveraged to help with that field technician optimization. And then for the field techs out in the field, we've got a variety of those configurable mobile apps for data collection and workforce management and things like that. So I've got another question here. Has ArcGIS and Esri products in general have network inventory capabilities to enable network operations once implementation is completed, to have full design, build, operate cycle within the Esri portfolio? So that one's a mouthful, but the short answer to that one is also yes. So that's one of the values that a complete GIS really brings to the table, which is that system of record capabilities, that system of insight, and really that system of engagement to be able to start with the initial plans, get that information out to the field, distribute it digitally through contractors, get input on it, all the way through construction and as-built, and have that plan continue the journey along the way before it is finally as-built, entered in for network operations, at which point that same GIS is then tapped into real-time information to look at things like network alarms and perform downstream workflows like damage assessment and inspections after the fact. So having that complete GIS really allows you to have that spatial data travel throughout the whole design process all the way through the end and perform some operations with it. So I see one additional question. I know we're getting short on time. There's actually a couple, but I'll take one of these two. Can you repeat the ArcGIS tools used for fixed wireless and fiber planning? Sure. So within ArcGIS Pro, we were really leveraging the viewshed and line of sight tools. Now there's kind of some out of the box tools, as well as a new exploratory analysis toolbar, which we showed to allow you to do some of these things on the fly. Those tools can also be extended to start leveraging the spectrum calculations, Fresnel zone modeling that I mentioned. And we've got a variety of partners that also provide RF engineering tools if you're looking for a true full-blown RF engineering solution that is GIS based.
Thank you, Patrick and Pat, for answering all those questions. We will be answering the remaining questions and any other questions you have offline shortly after this webinar. We want to thank you again for sending in all of your questions and taking the time out of the day to join us for this webinar. Again, the recorded link will be emailed to you and share to you. We want to wish you a happy holidays from the Esri team, and this concludes our webinar on resource optimization.